That's what I want to talk to you about all day, but that's not important right now.
My van driver.
That can wait. That can wait, not important.
I'm just waiting for my seat. Hey, thanks. 3960. Which show?
I guess I won't need you when we go home.
We gave you the nice one, Jan.
Did you get the nice one? Good.
Now what do I do? So I need 3960.
We'll give out the secret code.
Doesn't it say 3960?
Just get up and sleep. That's I did me too. I start picking myself up too.
Get up and do
That's all I need.
That's all I got him and put his down. Like, okay, that's the hit for me.
Oh,
I think we were all crabby.
not enough information.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the order of the City of Joliet regular meeting of the City Council for Tuesday, August 21st, 2018. Mayor Bob Odekirk presiding. We will have the invocation this evening given by Pastor Herb Brooks, Jr. of the St. John Missionary Baptist Church, 104 East Joliet Boulevard, after which he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we all stand, please?
Yes. Thank you, Councilman Morris. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Would you mind praying along with me? Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this night that you have ordained as we come before this city council here in Joliet, Illinois. Your word reminds us in Psalm 24 that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And it's those thereof that we're here praying for tonight in a city called Joliet, which we like to call the City of Champions. We ask your prayers tonight upon this mayor, the city council, all the departments of the City of Joliet, the fine employees, and all the residents that make up this city called Joliet. Now, Lord, we ask your blessing upon this agenda. Show us your direction to do your work and to do your will. Bless this meeting and all those that are here on tonight. In our Lord's name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Feel friend?
Of course, always.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor. Ms. Brooks.
Thank you, Pastor. That's right. That's right. Come right around the corner. All I need you to do to come around the corner.
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk. Here. Councilman Dickinson. Here. Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Girl.
Here.
Councilman Hugg. Here. Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
First on the agenda this night is a presentation on the comprehensive annual financial report by Dave Meyer with Wormer, Rogers, Duran, and Ruzon.
Good evening. You have in front of you either a paper or electronic copy of the comprehensive annual financial report for the year ended December 31st, 2017. We spoke at length about this document in the Finance Committee meeting. A couple of the highlights that I'll point out. Myself and our team were out here to do the audit, and when we do an audit, we gather your financial records that you provide to us, and we make sure that they are in keeping with generally accepted accounting principles, and then we assist you in preparing this document that summarizes the financial information of the city for the previous fiscal year. And a couple of the highlights that I'll point out. One is that in the introductory section, the last page of the introductory section is a certificate of achievement for financial reporting that was given to the city by the Government Finance Officers Association. And this is for reporting for the year ended 2016. The award is presented to you because you did an excellent job of reporting your balances. You followed all of the rules and laws when it comes to financial reporting for governments. And this is not the first time you've gotten the award. You've gotten it many times in the past. And this document that you see, the 2017 financial statements, has been submitted again for consideration for an award. I'm going to look at next page 1, which is our independent auditor's report. This is where we put our name on the line and we say we have audited your balances and that these financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. So that's on page 1 through 3. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. There's actually what's called a management's discussion and analysis, a great place to go to read about the city's activity on pages 4 through 15. I won't read through that. I'm going to stop at what's called the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances, and that's on page 22. And I'd like to point out the general fund, your main operating fund of the city, for the year ended December 31st, 2017, showed total revenues of just over 168 million, expenditures a little bit less than that, 167.7 rounded, and actually a net change in fund balance of a positive 1.2 million. So you went from a fund balance of 54.6 to 55.8. So you were up a positive for the year in the general fund, and that fund balance represents about 4 months of operations. So that would carry you into the next fiscal year. There's many, many pages of numbers here, disclosures about all your funds, all kinds of required disclosures. I'm not going to go into all those. I wanted to make sure I pointed out the general fund. There's some statistical information in the back that's generally 10 years in length, showing how the balances have changed over time. And we also talked about how the equalized assessed value of the city has gone up now several years in a row, which means the tax rate has actually gone down. So you've seen a positive in that respect, and that the gaming taxes have now leveled off as well. You had a slight uptick in the gaming taxes after many, many years of decline. Any questions about the report? Again, it was submitted for consideration for an award, and all these numbers were also reported to the Illinois State Comptroller on their specialized form, so that reporting has been taken care of as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
Next on the agenda, under Mayor, we have 2 proclamations. The first proclamation is honoring the 2018 Chicago Golden Gloves champion, Jose Luna.
My dad was a Golden Gloves champion.
Was he?
That was his role hanging up at the wing.
Nice. Hey, talk to Brian.
Proclamation. Whereas Jose Luna, out of the Luna Boxing, located near the downtown area of Joliet, 2018 Chicago Golden Gloves Tournament, March of 18, moved up a weight class and a level of competition. Whereas Jose competed in the 141 Men's Open, 141 pound, I assume, Men's Open Elite Division, and in the primary round of the tournament, Jose won in the second round by a technical knockout, advancing to the semifinals. Whereas in the semifinals, Jose fought against the 2017 Chicago Golden Gloves champ, Ivan Perot, and Jose won by a split decision and advanced to the finals. Whereas both Jose and Ivan were awarded the best fight of the tournament. In the finals, Jose won by unanimous decision against the 2017 Golden Gloves runner-up and the 2016 Chicago Golden Gloves champ, Kayla Mosley. Whereas Jose won the 2018 Chicago Golden Gloves championship and beat the #1 and the #2 ranked fighters in his division. Whereas he was awarded the best male boxer in 2018 Chicago Golden Gloves Tournament. Whereas Jose Luna went on to the National Golden Gloves Tournament representing Team Chicago at the 141-pound division in Omaha, Nebraska. Whereas Jose was claimed additional titles over the years 2013, 2014, Chicago Power Gold Gloves Champion, the 2014 Illinois Silver Golden Gloves Champion, and the 2015 Chicago Golden Gloves runner-up in the novice division. Now, therefore, I, Robert Odekirk, Mayor of the City of Joliet, Illinois, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize the compliments of Jose Luna for his boxing victories and wish him the best of luck and success in his future endeavors.
I'd like to start out by sincerely and personally thanking each and every one of you for your time and for this proclamation. It's an honor to be a part of the Golden Gloves history and to represent the City of Joliet and Luna Boxing. I appreciate everyone's support and throughout my boxing career, and will continue to work hard and do my best in boxing and in life. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, guy.
Next is a proclamation recognizing IKEA for achieving coveted LEED Gold certification.
You know, we're at a time when you discuss green initiatives, protecting the planet and so forth. For some reason now it can turn into a knockdown brawl.
Knocked it down, turned it down.
And I think we all do realize.
Eric, can you talk in the mic, please?
I really do think that. I really do think that we all realize that it is important to respect and protect our planet. You know, some think it is more immediate than others, but it's still necessary. IKEA brings two positive things to the city. Number one, economic development. This is one of the successes, and we're having more success. But one of the successes, a big success, in bringing IKEA to the city of Joliet as a business partner. And their initiatives in respecting the planet is kind of the cherry on the sundae for coming here. So I'm going to read the proclamation, and you'll get it. I'll get my old man glasses out. Okay, the proclamation is as follows. Whereas the U.S. Green Building Council, otherwise known as the USGBC, is an internationally recognized organization that promotes sustainability in building design, construction, and operation. Whereas to help encourage the design, construction, and operation of sustainable buildings, the USGBC created the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, or LEED, program that is considered the leading green building rating system worldwide. Whereas the recently completed Joliet IKEA distribution facility features a state-of-the-art solar array. This solar array system is currently the largest in Illinois, measuring 268,920 square foot with 9,036 separate solar panels. Whereas the solar array will produce approximately 3.3 million kilowatts of electricity annually for the facility, the equivalent of reducing 2,513 tons of carbon dioxide, which is equal to the emissions of 538 vehicles, or providing electricity for 377 homes yearly. Whereas IKEA and its team, led by Gray Construction and Vertigy LLC, committed to designing the Joliet facility to LEED standards and were awarded the coveted LEED Gold certification. Now therefore, I, Robert Odekirk, Mayor of the City of Joliet, Illinois, on behalf of the Joliet City Council, do hereby recognize IKEA for its dedication to sustainable building design and responsible environmental stewardship, and congratulate the company and its team for providing an exemplary example of sustainable building and corporate citizenship in Joliet. And it's signed August 21st, 2018, Mayor Robert Odekirk.
Well, we certainly appreciate the recognition today, and you'll all be invited to the grand opening. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome job. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Next is Mayor Odekirk appointments. None this evening. Holston representatives are here this evening as a follow-up on yesterday's Riverwalk Homes discussion. If you could come up this time.
Good evening, Mayor Odekirk, City Council members, and City staff. I'm Peter Holston, President of Holston Real Estate Development Corporation. With me tonight is Andrea Keeney, Senior Development Manager, and Catherine Wilson, Director of Accounting and Finance. I believe how we left it off yesterday is Holston was going to talk with the other group that had a proposal for what to do with the site. We had a personal visit with them yesterday and a phone conversation with them this afternoon. And I guess we're here to answer questions and hope this will help you along to determining the comfort level of how many units should remain at Evergreen.
I don't know how we want to. So we met this, we didn't meet, we actually spoke this afternoon. Catherine Wilson, who's with me, is the head of our accounting division. And mostly what we did in our call this afternoon, was to go through the operating budget and to answer any questions that Damon had. So we did that. I think that provided some clarity for him. This afternoon at 4:30, we received a redevelopment plan from them, which kind of varies from the redevelopment plan that we had seen yesterday. I don't know if you want to get up to present that or how we want to approach that.
Yeah, you can approach Damon. I think we're just, if you can outline, I guess, what the new plan is, and then some response from staff.
I promise I won't take more than a couple minutes to do this. I don't know if you have it on the projector. Or...
It's not.
So the Joliet plan, we've modified it. We after speaking with Holston yesterday, we changed the location of the buildings. So it's C and B building right now. But before we go there, again, we'll reduce the density, as we said yesterday, by 241 units. We modified the buildings to B and C, and we're keeping the community center in the same place. We believe, like Holston, that's in the preferable location. Again, this plan would require no additional loans or money needed from the city. 115 apartments are maintained and repaired as needed, and the plan opens the site for future Riverwalk park and recreation. If you go to the next page. And then you could go to the following. And I know that might be tough to read for some of the people in the audience, but so in a sense what this plan does, we looked at Holston's numbers, we took their numbers, we decided we're not going to use our numbers, we'll use Holston's numbers, Holston's expenses. And what we did is each year, we showed 2018, 2019 as a steady state with 356 units. And then in 2020, we start a small drawdown from the baseline. If you look at column, or I should say row 3, in 2020, you have a little smaller income, smaller expenses, you still have reserves. We start with the relocation fee, and that was something we weren't completely familiar with, but we did a little research, and we came up with a number of something like $3,500 per unit. So after the first 3 years, the city has recovered $3.5 million, roughly, or slightly more. Year 4, you could just keep following it over. We have a 22% reduction of baseline. It's down to 277 units. The income is reduced again. The net effect, or, we have to account for reserves too. We accounted for relocation expenses. We accounted for demolition in that. The revenue was down to 652. So if we weren't, I could continue through the whole chart, but I don't want to waste your time. But if we weren't going to count the relocation demo cost, we would have paid the city back by around 2032, using their numbers. We think the numbers could ultimately get better with experience of running the place. We think there's opportunity for cost improvement, but we're not utilizing that in this budget. So that's in a nutshell where we were going with ours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
Mayor, if I could,
yes.
I'd like to ask Ken Mihalik, our budget manager, to come up. He and other staff members also had an opportunity to kind of review what these gentlemen had put together, and we just kind of want to give you some additional insight as we're trying to kind of make a comparison between the two. And Ken, could you share some of your observations and review of the two proposals?
Well, sure. First, I just want to step back and say that the meeting we had this afternoon I thought was real productive. I know, Mayor, you had asked us to set that up, and we had a conference call, and I think by adding information, it made both parties understand where each other is coming from. So that was real helpful. I mean, we even dug into things as simple as telephone bills and things like that. So it was a good discussion. And I appreciate both parties participating in it. As far as the proposal, I think I got it at 4:24 this afternoon, and I had a finance committee meeting at 5:30. So I'm not going to say I looked at it with enough time to make real good observations. But I think, and I think Holston can probably, because they're development experts, talk about this a little bit more. But a few observations is I know they did come to use more of our operating numbers, which I think is probably a better way to look at it. So we're looking at it apples to apples. I also think that some of the things that they weren't aware of when they did it is that they assumed that 100% of the profit was coming back to the city, but it really would be 90% essentially, because we get 80%, and then the last 20 is split 50-50 until the 11.4 million is paid down. So if they have 10 million up there, that would be 9 million. There's a few other things that I know I spoke with Andrea about, and again, this was probably in about 4 minutes in between meetings, so I apologize, but we did get late. But there are things like the expenses, which sometimes aren't always directly proportional to the reduction. So, in accounting, we talk about things like fixed and variable expenses, and, certain expenses still remain the same pretty much depending upon how many units are there, and some certainly reduce. And so some of those factors I think would have to come in here. But, I think the plan as they present, it's straightforward. I don't have an opinion on it because we really haven't had time to delve into it. It does assume that these buildings are going to last for 20 years. And I think Holston, would probably add something to that. So those are my general comments. If you have any questions, I'd be glad. But like I said, it came with very little time to really look at it. And again, I think we hired Holston because they have experience in this kind of development, and we're using a lot of their expertise obviously to provide guidance because they've gone through this many times.
Any questions?
If I could just add one other observation, because as Peter Holston and Andrew Keating mentioned, what's critical coming up for the meeting with some HUD officials is what do we take to them? And as we indicated last night, we think roughly looking at scenario 3, seemed to be more in line with what we were hearing from most of the council. However, I think even as we're looking at this other proposal, I do believe that and maybe this is for the council discussion, is what we could take to HUD is the number of 115, trying to get the units down to what the HUD settlement agreement allows us to go down to. And in those discussions, at least, we could say, here's scenario 3, but we also want to maybe reduce it. Because if we don't go down to that number a year from now, whether it's 179 or something higher, we're going to be stuck with that number for 20 years. So I think there is some merit as we look at both of these plans, have the council consider directing Holston and city staff to at least discuss with HUD, trying to get the ultimate number of units over the next 20 years down to the 115 number. And as indicated with that and anything else, the Holston Management Company is looking for us tonight. We can then have those discussions with HUD over the next couple of weeks, come back to you on, I think it's Tuesday, September 4th, for a follow-up and a report back on what we heard from HUD, and then be seeking any kind of final agreement. And Peter, if you want to, or Andrea, come back and just confirm that, or again, what we're looking for the council tonight to help us in those HUD discussions.
Mayor,
Yes.
okay. So what you're suggesting is scenario 3 with 115 units rather than 177 units?
Yes, just to preserve, at least we can go down to that, but doesn't mean that we're bound to stick with that as we continue into more detailed redevelopment plan design and discussion over the next couple of years.
So my question to you is, you said last night it was very difficult to get before HUD within the time frame that we have. So if we meet again in 2 weeks, are you going to be able to have that information for us?
We'll try our best, yes. I mean, we have to get in front of Dan Berg, who is the Midwest director, and so sometimes he's out in DC or in other areas. I can't guarantee anything, but we'll definitely reach out to him.
Yeah, Andrea is good because she's very conservative in her numbers. I'm a little more optimistic. I think with pretty high certainty we can get in front of HUD between now and your meeting on the 3rd.
So I would ask that one of our city attorneys attend that meeting with you in case there's any other questions for the city. As far as
we
that goes.
we wouldn't go to HUD without the city. Yeah, I mean, we're partners.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to comment on the plan that's shown up there. I think it's very thoughtful. You know, if that were the plan that we would be asked to follow, you know, we would probably tweak the numbers. But it's obvious that these two gentlemen put a lot of effort into this in a very short period of time, and we commend them for their efforts.
Yeah, and one other thing to mention on this plan, so this is 115 units in the 2 buildings that Damon had described. However, there are currently 128 units there, so I believe his proposal is to have 13 of those units sitting vacant for a duration of 17 years or so, which is not something that we typically see, but I think it was in an effort to get the number of units down to the minimum required by HUD. So that's just one thing to point out. And I think also Ken had mentioned to council that this $10.4 million figure, when you take it at 90%, it's actually a payback to the city of about $9.36 million, assuming that the expenses are accurate, which I think Ken had alluded to. I do think that those would have to be tweaked a little bit.
And just to reiterate, so to on the same page, those 115 units would not have to be at the current site. That would be scattered site housing, is that correct?
Well, the proposal shown by Damon here, no, that these are actually, I think he's taken it out 20 years, because once we make that commitment to HUD, those would stay then on site for the 20 years.
Well, I see that, but I thought last night when you said scenario 3, with the 177 units that stay,
yes.
Once we gave a proposal for those many units, we got rid of the first 176, we still had 177 or 79, yes. Whatever. But those didn't necessarily have to be on that site. That would be scattered site housing. So that's not correct anymore?
Yeah.
Yes,
But I'm saying using the 115 number, not the 179. So I basically asked you, is this scenario 3 with 115 units? And you said yes. So having said that, after so many years, the 115 units, yes, we still have to have them for 20 years. But before, it didn't have to be at that site. It was off-site. So this is different?
Yeah. So I think you're asking about Damon's proposal, 115. So his, I don't want to call this.
No, excuse me.
Sure.
I'm asking scenario 3 with 115 units. I'm asking for your scenario with 115 units. Will that work?
It's 170.
My scenario is 100, scenario 3 for me is 177 units.
So the 115 won't work there. That was my question. Maybe I didn't make it clear to you.
Yes, I have not modeled our scenario. Our scenario is different than Damon's, and that Damon's keeps them as is. Ours is a moderate rehab of $75 a square foot for scenario 3. So it's a completely different product.
But you can't combine the two to make it work at scenario 3 with 115 instead of 179?
I could look at, I received this on my drive down to Joliet.
I'm asking you to look at that. Could we make that happen?
115 units. Yes, I mean, as I mentioned a little bit ago, we would have 13, if we're continuing to house them in the 2 buildings that Damon's proposing at the north end of the site, we would have 13 vacancies, 13 units sitting vacant because we're doing a mod rehab. Again, we're not taking them down to the studs and reconfiguring the units themselves. So we would have 13 vacancies, which seems odd to me for a period of about 17 years. But I could run those numbers, definitely. One thing I do want to point out in this scenario, the settlement agreement calls for the community center to be at 363 North Broadway, and there's further language, I don't have it exactly in front of me, but there's further language in there that says that once whatever land is left over from 363 can be sold off after the community center is put there. I don't know how HUD is going to view it to keep the community center as is. Are we just going to, would the city then just have vacant land sitting across the street at 363? Because I don't know, I mean, that just seems odd to me. It seems like it would be used for something because it's not parkland. So it's just going to be vacant indefinitely.
But the way the scenario goes now, if there's 179 or 177 units left, that does not have to remain at that site. That's what was said last night.
179, yes, can be relocated, but we're using 3, go ahead.
So I'm asking again, maybe I'm making this very clear, can we go down to the 115 for those few years like you would have had the 179, and then after those years are over, it would be the scattered site housing at 115, not the 179. It doesn't have to stay at that site. Because you said after so many years, we don't have to have that many at that, we can get rid of those apartments for 20 years, right, 20 years.
No,
right.
They can go anywhere, as long as there's land available for it to be constructed. I don't know that the city has land for 115 units. I mean, it could be scattered site, but that's difficult to manage, exceptionally difficult to manage, and it's also expensive to construct.
Okay, but we've been over this several times. I don't mean just with you. I've been back and forth with the attorneys because it is very confusing, and I want people to understand this.
It's complicated.
So if we stay with your numbers now, the way it is, forget the 115, we stay with the scenario 3 numbers, those 177 units.
Correct.
We have for 20 years.
A 20-year commitment.
But they don't have to stay at the current site. Is that not correct?
Well, the model that we put together showed complete, like a mod rehabilitation of those units, so they would stay.
Erase the site and put the 177 around the city.
If there's land available to do that, but then we have to run a model of
I know we're committed for
constructing
20 years, but we're not committed 20 years at that particular site.
You're not committed to at the particular site. There's only 115 units that are required, my interpretation of the settlement agreement, 115 units that are required to be built within the city of Joliet for these families.
So they don't have to stay there. In that
They do not, my interpretation is that they do not have to stay there, correct? It can be used, the land can be used for a public purpose. However, there will be expenses associated with moving those 115 units to an alternate site.
But that's after a certain amount of time. It's not right away.
Well, I mean, after we have to commit to HUD where you're going to do that. So we have 1 year from this October. We have to let them know by October how many units are going to be retained on the site. So if you're saying you want to retain on site 0 units now, then we have to start planning. We have a little bit of time with HUD, hopefully, but we have to start planning for where these 115 units are going to go in the city of Joliet.
Next 20 years.
And they will have to be located there for the next 20 years, and there will have to be a development budget similar to what we've done for this site. There'll have to be a development budget that's put together, and it's going to be costly. We're looking at around $200 a square foot minimum for construction, for new construction, in addition to an acquisition expense, assuming that the city does not have the land available to construct a 115 unit building. Again, I think And in addition, the city needs to be paid back. So the city being paid back, let's say that its outstanding balance of 11.4 million, in addition to acquisition of another parcel, which I believe would, I don't know, let's estimate it at $1 million. So then you're throwing more money, and the expenses, the per unit expense gets higher and higher.
And we still can't make a deal with our HUD after a while to have them take over the 115 units?
HUD?
Our Joliet
Housing Authority? I think that was approached by the city previously.
I'd asked about it, and you said no, but I'm still asking.
Well, in terms of this, Holston has been designated the developer. I think that there was a while ago that council, I don't know, and Marty, you could refresh.
2 years ago, we were at HUD and asked them the question. HUD said no.
But that was 2 years ago. Is it still the same answer?
The thing that I inquired about with the Housing Authority were capital funds, and the response that I received was that they don't have capital dollars available to give to this project.
But to answer your question, we don't know today how HUD feels about the Housing Authority of Joliet. We would have to ask them if they could take it over.
Did you ask?
No.
You can't ask?
No, we can ask.
I said, can you ask?
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. Yes, we can ask.
I would appreciate that if you...
We will.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor. Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess I'll refer to it as Damon's proposal. Can I assume the 13 vacant units, we could accept a voucher from individuals who are looking to be housed in a housing development here in the city of Joliet?
You sure could. That would bring you over your 115, but you sure could.
But it would only be a year-to-year guarantee to that person.
That's correct.
Not the 20 years. Thank you.
Okay. Just one question, Peter, Andrea. Taking into account, and I know you haven't gotten your numbers on Damon's piece, the 115 units, what does that do to the funding gap? Now, it widens the funding gap that we would have.
It takes longer to make funding gap.
I know it's probably a hard question to answer, and you haven't worked
without
your
having
numbers just yet.
I think we would structure the 115 units, since it's taken down from 177 to 115, we might be able to do it in one phase. Honestly, I really have to take a look at the numbers before I can respond to that.
Yeah, okay. Because I kind of thought you would. I know it would possibly widen that gap that we had, because I think we had a $2.7 million gap.
Yeah, it was about 2.8 million.
Yeah.
It's likely, because our first mortgage obviously is going to drop because of the number of units are dropping. And also I have to take a look at the tax credit equity as well, because that's going to go down.
Yeah.
I just received this on my drive down here, so I need to have some time to respond to it.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy to throw the numbers together. I can put these numbers together tomorrow or the following day and get back to you all, but.
Good, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, just to, and I understand your deal since we went over it a number of times, scenario 3, with the 177 units, but just to understand, I believe it's Damien's proposal, he's gonna go down to 115. My understanding is that the city would get paid back its $11.4 million in 2032, I think, or 2030.
What does it say up there?
No, so his scenario shows a repayment to the city, actually not a full repayment to the city, by 2038. So he's showing in this scenario $10.4 million of net income, of which 90% would be returned to the city, and that's a 20-year projection. So that's about, again, it's a 90%, 10% split, and so that represents about 9.36 million that would be returned to the city by 2038.
Okay, so maybe some other possibly operating income numbers would have to be adjusted, or pro forma.
Yes, and I think this is it's a good model that he put together. It's just, it probably, in terms of the expenses, I think Ken had mentioned this, that he took the expenses down just proportionate to the number of units that were removed, and it doesn't necessarily work that way.
Doesn't run that way.
Right.
Okay.
So we would have to look at this a little more carefully. I mean, I think for an off-the-cuff kind of run, I think it was a good model, but I just think it would have to be analyzed a little bit more.
We'll tighten it up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question, are we looking, because our proposal is to do a mod rehab and bring in tax credit financing. His proposal is to keep the units as is.
That was kind of my next
and operate like scenario 1 almost, that I had presented previously.
Well, that was kind of my next question. I think where the gap is going to be made, also I'm assuming in his model, I believe at least what he said yesterday, is that it wouldn't require any additional funds from the city. So that's another kind of, when you're going through the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there was a conversation of the city being on the hook for, it's not necessarily money that's going out from the city, because our scenario 3 with 177 units, the city is paid back in full that 11.4 million of its outstanding acquisition balance.
And there was a gap of 2.8, which you felt you could make up.
We can make that up. Right. Yes, okay. We can likely make that up through IDA, increased tax credit pricing. I think we had the pricing at 90 and 94 cents for acquisition and low income tax credit equity, a payment essentially, and that could potentially go up, right. Yes. But we also showed in that model, as Peter just mentioned, a payback by 2024 to the city. And it's a payback in full of the outstanding acquisition balance. Although the city would still be a partner in the deal and there would be obligations on that front. But the money directly out is repaid.
Right, got it. One last thing and then I'm done. I think it would just, at least using some, intuitively, looking at these numbers intuitively, I think where the difference is going to be made up, you were showing $75 per square foot, or say roughly 75 grand a unit in this remod. He's got to be doing something much less in order to make it work at 115 units. And I'm assuming, I don't know what that number is, but maybe it's more. I mean, $75,000 per unit, that's a lot of dough.
Yeah, on his plan though,
he's got to be doing something much less.
It's showing there's no repair. I think Damon, I don't want to speak for Damon, but there's no repairs done here. The repairs, I think that there's 0 repairs done in this scenario. The only repairs that would be done, and I don't want to speak for him, but the only repairs that would be done would be on an as-needed basis and taken from the replacement reserve. So, and these, keep in mind that these buildings, for 20 years, I mean, there is money sitting in an existing replacement reserve with HUD, but Damon hasn't modeled out here, capital repairs to the buildings by any means. Okay. That's not included here.
Thank you.
Mayor, can we ask Damon? He wants to approach.
Larry, go ahead and let Damon, if you want, Mayor.
Yeah, that's fine.
I do want to say that there is 4.2 million in reserves that are generated during this whole period that would be able to use to handle any future repairs to that building. Am I correct? Is there not 2.5 million right now?
Yeah, there's 2.6 million.
And there's 1.68 that would be generated
that you're
over
modeling,
that life.
but it doesn't come in year 1.
No, it comes in over a period, but you have 2.5 million right now. You're going to continue to generate reserves over the years.
Right.
So.
And you would, but replacement reserves, Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that HUD would have the expectations that they would be replaced if they're, to the extent they're used over time. So this amount, technically, the reserve amount that's shown here potentially could go up a little bit, which then would reduce the amount, the payment to the city.
Okay. Your Honor,
there's a variety of.
Oh, Larry, go ahead.
Where's in the Damon proposal? Where is the 2.6 million in replacement reserve accounted for right now?
It's not shown because it's sitting, and I previously had mentioned that I thought that it was sitting with HUD. It's actually sitting with the partnership. Correct me if I'm wrong. So there's 2.6 million sitting with the partner or the LLC, but it cannot be touched without HUD giving us authorization to do so.
What to use it for?
Correct.
Right. So it's not a rainy day fund according to HUD. It's a remod fund or a improvement fund, capital.
To the extent that there are capital repairs that are necessary to operate these buildings efficiently, yes, they can be tapped into, but there's a process we have to go through with HUD in order for them to release those dollars.
And under this proposal, which is showing no planned, it's kind of, you'll address it as it comes up. There's no planned capital improvement, so there's no access to that money.
Well, I mean, Damon would have to put together a list of capital repairs that would be necessary, and then that would have to be modeled in this as well.
And I also think, and you guys can tell me from your experience in low-income housing, multi-unit, higher density. I don't think I would be comfortable with any plan that has vacant units. Vacant units attract crime, danger. It's a safety issue. If I had a nickel for every article I read about some poor person at a public housing project in Chicago who was attacked on some level, and in the story says, dragged to a vacant unit. I don't think that's wise in keeping vacant units. But the other thing, your original number one, plan one, that was based on an $11 million of the $15 million we actually spent. $11 million a balance. Your number two, now, and you had that paid off by 2024, correct?
I believe it
I
was
think our memory is serving us.
I thought it was a 17-year payback, but I could be, here, let me pull it up.
Could you pull it up?
Yes, I can.
You talking about for your 11.4?
Yeah, that's the.
2034, so 17 years, I
And
believe.
what was number two? That was.
2047.
So this one you have in front of me, if the council so chose, would take 4 years longer and not pay the entire amount back.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Who's next?
I think part of my question was answered. Councilman Hug asked part of it and you answered. The other part is that on this plan, there is no, I don't see, or maybe there is, the mod rehab. There is none in there, Damon, for mod rehab at all. So it's, so the buildings remain the same as now. Okay.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
This version is essentially our version 1, operating them as is, but taking the number from what we had shown with 319, taking that down to 115. So it's the same version as that, pretty much.
Okay, thank you.
John, if I did my math right, the 13 vacant units would generate about $100,000 a year if we had offered them to people with vouchers. And Larry, the Housing Authority of Joliet, as we know, is closing up the housing program on the Far East Side. And as it's my understanding from HUD that they're looking desperately to find houses, adequate houses for these individuals. We could offer them 13 units immediately, so I don't think we would have any vacancies there.
That would be a good news. Mayor, one more thing. Your scenario number 2, that was paid off in 2042?
2047.
2047, and that was including the $10 million.
So in 9 additional years, beyond what we have in here, by keeping these units in the current condition without any improvements, 9 additional years of this, and we would get our full $22 million back, right?
With the 350, or the 319 units, demolishing the 2 wood frame buildings at some point, but yes.
Okay, so this would leave over $15 million on the table. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? David?
Peter, just so if there's anything you want from the council tonight in the way of direction for our upcoming meeting with HUD, what would it be?
Well, I'd like us to settle on the number of units and then take it to council on September 3rd in the form of a resolution. So
My only concern is that we need to get in front of HUD now. And so I think we can go to them with a verbal commitment from council. I know that there's a process that has to be gone through, but waiting another 2 weeks for a resolution to come out, to me, puts us behind kind of where we need to be. So if we could get a verbal kind of commitment tonight, that would be helpful so that we feel confident approaching HUD with whatever number council is comfortable with.
And if that verbal was, say, conceptually, the council's, looking more favorably to scenario 3, getting the number down to 177, but including our conversations with HUD, the possibility that maybe even getting that down to 115. We're not sure, but.
I mean, we can approach HUD with this. I think if council would be comfortable saying a maximum of 177 units and a minimum of 115 units to be on site. I mean, we need to be clear, that's the other thing. It can't be 115 units that are going to be relocated throughout the city. We need to know how many units are going to remain on site. So if we can get that answer, that's what we need to know.
And I would recommend that maybe if you could go with that range, maximum 177, minimum 150. And again, it's just for sitting down, negotiation, and only the final decision would be coming back to you after we give you the input from HUD and the outcome of those meetings.
So, David, what I'm hearing you is that we go to HUD with a range and then we come back with a recommendation?
Or,
what it is?
Yeah, based on what we think HUD's going to agree with. If they have resistance to anything other than ones.
I think it would be good to provide HUD with if we're going to present two plans, a 177 unit plan and a 115 unit plan. For the 115 unit plan, are we doing a mod rehab, which is, the numbers are going to be different than what's shown here. So are we doing a mod rehab, or are we going to HUD with a scenario where we're keeping 115 units as is and tapping into the replacement reserve to do capital repairs on an as needed basis? I think that's because they're very different.
Yes.
Our scenario 3 is a mod rehab that requires tax credit equity financing.
And if I could, I think in the past there seemed to be a lot of support for the mod rehab. We got to keep in mind we have to invest in upgrading these units, not only for the next 20 years, but who knows, maybe a little beyond. So I think we've heard a lot of positive of trying to improve the quality, you know, of those, which coincides with the scenario 3.
Mayor, might I just say something briefly? I'd like the council also to consider the residents. There's been a lot of focus on finances, but there's really hasn't been a lot of focus on the residents. As I think I mentioned a while ago, this has been their home for many years, and yes, they can get vouchers. Yes, they can go and look around, and with our assistance, obviously. But me personally, I think, you know, I'd like you to open your heart and think about them, and you know, not erase the site. That's just my personal opinion. But we will do what you decide because we're your partner. But I do want to mention, let's not forget the residents.
That's so true.
Yes. I guess I do have something to say. I kind of agree with David on the 115. Whatever we do, we need to make the apartments better than what they are. And you always talking about making them larger.
That was
at one point. I mean,
that was one of the scenarios.
So
yes.
If you do that, you're gonna drop the density in that building, right?
Correct.
So the 179 was with the mod rehab. So, but
177 was a mod rehab, and the gut rehab was 144. It's a increase of unit size of about 20%.
The 144 was the
taking it down. So the 144 scenario 4 was 144 units, and that was a gut rehab. But that again, that had about over $10 million of a $10 million gap.
But the 177 was the mod rehab.
Correct.
Okay. So then that was with 3 buildings. Is that correct, or 2?
Three buildings.
That was with 3 buildings.
Yes, and his is his 2.
Yeah, but I think if it's 115 or 177, the apartments need to be at least a mod rehab. That was my personal thing. And the other thing, Mayor, I was going to ask, I mean, because you all keep saying the city needs their money back. And if I'm HUD and I hear you say, you know, to me, it would give me a bad taste in my mouth. To me, if I'm HUD, I'm not HUD. And then we asking them to not to move the center, which we're supposed to move. But at the same time, you're saying, well, but we want our money back, but we want you to do this for us too. I mean, is it another a way to phrase the fact that we would like our money back, or, you know, it would be nice? I mean, instead of being, to me, it just sounds kind of harsh to HUD.
Yes.
And I really didn't want to say that because they might be looking.
No, they're not looking. They're not looking.
But I just think it's, you know, because again, and I think I've told other people, I would love for us to get the whole, how much is it, Larry? 20-something million back. 25 million back and put back into the city coffers. But at the same time, I don't want HUD to feel that it's one. And then we go on with the lowest number that they said that we have, that this is the lower. I mean, and to me, the 177 sounds like we are trying to think about the residents, and we mod rehab in place. You know, I would love to do the 115 with a mod rehab, but the numbers, again, is not working. And I know the scattered site, you know, from, you know, with the housing authority is just not cost effective, you know, to go around, to repair here, repair there, and to keep up with it, you know, from over the years. And I guess that's why they try to keep, the homes, in a close proximity. But that was my thing. If it's, that wording to HUD, and if I'm them, I'm saying, you got a lot of nerve to come in here and tell me what you want. Right. And then you asking us to not to move a community center, which is in the decree to do. That's just my opinion. I didn't know.
No, it's a very legitimate concern. Fortunately, we've been working with HUD for about 20 years. The Midwest manager I've known personally for about 10 years. And yes, regardless of all that, we have to be careful how we promote this to HUD. That's absolutely correct.
And that's all I'm saying.
Sure. Yes, and we would. There's no question.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
The so-called Damon proposal, it does keep the 115 units, once it's reduced to 115 units there for 20 years, correct?
That's correct.
So it is taking in part, people call that home and correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I thought I missed something. Okay.
Yeah, and then just to follow too. And the other day, I mean, was it 13 units that in Damon's proposal that won't be used?
Right.
I mean, so.
I think he had called for those to be storage.
But again, to me, and I know I'm not HUD, but so you just basically trying to get to the bare minimum, and to me, it's not considered. So you have these units that you could rent, but you're not renting them. To me, it's just not. It seems fair to 13 residents that could be using it. So we have what would that be, 128? Okay.
I would agree with that, and I think it would be better to approach HUD with the full number of units in those two buildings. That's just my personal opinion.
Mine too.
Yes.
It's been going on since 2005, and we're still kicking it down for another year. I'm trying to get my head around this. The initial proposal, Pat came up with a good idea, suggesting that we use, but the initial proposal said leave 13 vacant, right? So are we targeting buildings, or are we targeting people for removal? What are we targeting here? If it's buildings, you wouldn't leave them vacant. Are we targeting people? It's a question we have to ask ourselves. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, well, what staff is recommending is for you to go to HUD with the range of 177 and 115, correct? Yes. Try to get feedback from HUD about how they feel about that.
We can certainly do that.
But are we taking, I know what the 177 scenario we're taking to them is, are we taking the 115 scenario operating as is? Are we modeling it out as a mod rehab?
Well, I don't see how that's possible. Yeah, I know you'd like that, but I can't see it.
Okay.
Right? I mean, financially, it doesn't seem
not there.
right.
Yeah, it's not.
We can do that. We can take the 177 as a mod rehab and the 115 as is. We can certainly do that.
I was going to say, or maybe instead of your mod rehab, it's $75 a square foot. Maybe this is $10 a square foot. Maybe there's something, or you can't do that. You can't. Okay.
There's a minimum.
No.
$10 a square foot is not going to be a threshold that IDA's comfortable with because you're doing next to nothing. So it has to be a substantial, it has to be a moderate rehabilitation. $10 a square foot is not going to get us anywhere where we need to be.
It's not going to get you any
No.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, and you got to remember, Councilman, the prevailing wage has to be paid. We're a prevailing wage city. I know some people want to take the cheap route, but we got to have the integrity to honor our prevailing wage ordinance.
And that's, Your Honor, if I just,
yeah.
okay.
in what we do.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to add this last point in thinking about the residents now, and that is my primary focus. Going at 177 with a mod rehab at least freshens everything up, new kitchens. I get excited over a new stove myself, but anyway, that's another story. I digress. But to freshen the place up, do all of the capital improvements that the building needs, I think will give the residents there an opportunity to at least increase that quality of life right there. So that's where I am.
Yeah, so if we went to the 115 and do a mod rehab, we would need 3 buildings?
No, we can do a mod rehab. We could do the 115 units in the same 2 buildings that Damon's proposing, or any 2 buildings that have 115 units. We can do them there, with the exception of F&G, that are the wood frame buildings.
So I think I'm a little confused. Why do you need approval with HUD when they told us we have to have 115? Didn't they already tell us we have to have 115, and we have 115?
Yes, the settlement agreement says that's the minimum, but HUD asked us to come back before the first year renewal of the HAP contract and tell them what's up, what's the plan.
Your requirement, 115.
But we also have to send out relocation notices. So to those families that won't be returning, we have to send relocation notices by October 2nd of this year.
Exactly.
And there's a commitment then for whatever units that do not receive those relocation notices to keep them on site for the remaining, for 20 years.
I understand, but
Yeah.
we could also accept vouchers from the people who did not get a unit by lottery or however the 115 are chosen.
And
We will ask HUD that.
We can
We
ask.
believe that's true.
Okay.
And feedback on-
Marty will be there, and perhaps David, the city will be represented, and we will ask HUD, can we say we're only gonna keep 115, everybody else gets vouchers, they're gonna get these letters, and by the way, if you get the vouchers, can they stick around for a few years before their building is torn down? We will ask HUD that.
Thank you.
And the community center over there.
I was just gonna
Yeah, well, no, we will ask for the community center to stay where it is.
All right, well, is there a consensus on this?
What they just said, 115 units with a mod rehab?
No, the 177 to 115. And Councilman Mudrin's question about doing the baseline, I think, of 115 and keeping additional people on site, not with the HAP contracts, but with vouchers because they don't have a place to live. Correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
And basically no rehab, running the 115 as is.
Or the 177, the way they.
The mod rehab.
Right.
I can go with that.
I have that make the question, Mayor. The people that live there now, and what if I heard you right and what Pat's saying, Mayor, is that you convert them kind of from HAP to vouchers, right?
Correct.
But don't they have to be, and I like the way you said not returning, don't they have to be evicted to switch? I mean, how do they, if they have a HAP unit right now, will HUD give them a voucher too?
Yes, that's in the settlement agreement. This is a special deal. This is not normal. And for the residents that will have to move ultimately.
No, I mean the ones that we're
The ones
proposing
that are gonna
stay.
the ones that are will stay under the HAP contract.
So we can't do what I think what the mayor just alluded to, having people above the 115 remain on a voucher.
Yeah, no, they're gonna ask HUD, they said. But
We'll approach HUD about that, but I understand, I'm kind of leaning the way you are, Councilman. I think that they're giving vouchers, HUD is giving vouchers to people that are being relocated in anticipation of those buildings being demolished. They're not giving vouchers thinking that we're gonna keep the building standing and those people are then gonna return.
Or never leave.
Or never leave.
Right.
We can approach HUD about that, which we will do. I'm speaking for myself here. I don't think that they are going to allow that, but we will definitely approach them.
Thank you.
yes.
But they would allow another voucher to come in at those 13 units, just not maybe somebody living, I mean, intuitively that kind of makes sense what Councilman Huggins said, but somebody else could move in with a voucher. For the 13. For the 13.
Yeah, we have to find out.
Okay.
Yeah, this is speculation.
I guess, maybe ask for a consensus, I'm not agreeing with leaving the 115 as is.
Well, we'll have a chance to vote.
Yes.
Resolution. Okay.
But we do need to give some direction. I think there's 9 different opinions. But we have to give some direction to them. They have to go to HUD and come back and report to us what our options are.
No, the reason I'm saying, Mayor, is and I don't know what the consensus is, but if they went to HUD and HUD said, okay, you can keep the 115 with no mod rehab, I wouldn't support, if that's what everyone else, even if that's what they want, that's all. Okay.
My one question is, what happens, so we pick a scenario, if the HAP contracts run out, then where does that leave us?
Oh, if you just don't renew them?
Right, what if HUD doesn't renew them?
Probably get sued by HUD. I don't know, I'm speculating. I
mean, that could happen.
It would be in violation of our settlement agreement.
Yeah.
And probably federal statutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Is the concern that HUD isn't going to have appropriations for this, or is the concern that we're just going to walk, I guess?
No, I mean, there's a certain amount that you have, and so what if the HAP contracts just go away? Because there's some talk about that.
Oh, just go away?
Yeah, that's a Marty question when we get to HUD.
Yeah, I'll bring that up. I'll answer it. Add that to the agenda.
At that meeting? Okay, just want to know.
But I thought that's what the 20 years, it's a contract. That they're going to give a half contract for 20 years, and we have to provide 100 and whatever for 20 years. So how would it, they'd be on the contract, HUD would be on the contract with us just as much as we're on the contract with them for 20 years.
Yeah, we're under contract with them right now. And we have the right of a 1-year extension, but then at the end of that, at least 115 have to be under a new HAP contract, and the rest would get vouchers. But I think Councilman was saying if we just sort of didn't do anything.
If who didn't do anything? That's what
we have to respond to HUD. We're in the process right now of getting that your 1-year extension.
But when HUD agrees to whatever, it is, it's for 20 years. After this.
Ultimately, it's for 20 years, yes.
So we'll get those HAP contracts for 20 years.
That's correct.
In writing.
Yeah, it'll be a contract, right, Marty?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'll ask again, is there any consensus on following the directive that David Hales is recommending?
I agree.
Between the 177 and 115.
Get some answers from HUD coming back to the council?
In there, yeah.
They will have an opportunity to decide then.
Yes. We'll have a vote in
September
2
3.
weeks.
Yeah.
So it could be 115, it could be 177, it could be somewhere in between.
No, I'm not on board. Thank you, Mayor, for counting me in.
All right, thank you. Thank you with that.
This is what happens when you have a bunch of
Push for
council people trying to be housing authority experts.
Next on the agenda is
Hey, Mayor, excuse me, that may be on Tuesday, right? Pre-council, council combined?
It's after Labor Day.
Next one?
Yes.
Yeah.
on the 4th. Yes, on September 4th.
Peter, did you catch that? Andrea?
The meeting is on
Tuesday.
Labor Day's Monday.
So it's combined.
September 4th.
Thank you.
Next is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written?
So moved.
Second.
Been motion seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hugg.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. Citizens to be heard on agenda items. First this evening is Bob Cialone regarding Council Memo 435-18.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and staff. My name is Bob Cialone. I live at 1217 Cherry Hill Road in Joliet. While I stand here one last time in front of the council board, I'm hoping that the words I choose can convey the future emotional and financial concerns that will not be part of our lives. It is important for the board to to know and understand that the game we're forced to play right now, the rules have all been changed, and we can't turn back the clock. So we're just trying to salvage something from the situation we now face. We do appreciate Northern Builders making the changes to their site plan. I believe they made a change of setting the setback of 60 feet. And we also appreciate them increasing the height of the berms on the west side of the property, directly in front of our homes, to 15 feet. You have photos of the berms in front of you.
Thank you.
They're really not much to look at, other than that if you look at the first one, it's probably about 15 foot. We're all guessing here because nobody ran up with a tape measure. The property, that's my house, and I know that it's 190 feet across. So I'm saying that berm is approximately 220 to 250 feet in length. The second photo is from my neighbor to the south, the Parkers, and this is what they're looking down their driveway. I took this shot this morning, so I kind of caught the sun. But you can see the end of the berm and what they're going to be looking at on this. Excuse me. Maybe there was a misunderstanding last night when Northern Builders stated that the berms we built at 15 feet in height from end to end, not counting the tree plantings. Again, maybe I misunderstood last night because the current berm that we're looking at, there actually tapers off to a height of approximately a foot, where the driveway entrances on the north and south side of that berm will come in. There is somewhere between 60 and 80 feet on that berm, might be around 15 feet. Again, you got to kind of use a visual. It's hard to maybe see it in here, but that's where we're at on that. We the residents of Cherry Hill Road don't believe what we're going to ask for is excessive, considering the negative impact we property owners now face. We are requesting the board to require Northern Builders to build all berms to be no less than 15 feet. So when we look at them, we don't have any tapers running off. And then planting mature trees on the tops of them rather than saplings that we have to wait for them to grow. We know they'll grow, but we may not have time in our lives to see it. We're also requesting that the berms, as you're looking at, as they approach the entryway off of Cherry Hill Road, instead of having that taper down, we have them stay at 15 foot as far as they can, turn them back in. I've seen this done. Turn them back in so we complete the wall, and then they can use their tapering down into their proposed drive entranceways, where they can plant additional trees, and it'll actually dress up that end of it rather nicely. We're asking for this so it helps block the views as much as we can from the residents who have the driveways going right into the entranceways. And it'll also help on noise coming down. We kind of narrow the view a little bit.
You have the 4-minute mark. Can you wrap it up, please?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I was trying to speak a little bit slow. I did have one more question for Northern Builders regarding the properties on the berms going to the north of the driveways that they have proposed. There's been nothing built for the residents of 1201, 1207, and 1211 Cherry Hill Road. And we just want to know when they're planning on starting the construction of the berms for those people so they don't have to look at this site either. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Dennis Parker.
Yeah, my name is Dennis Parker. I live at 1219 Cherry Hill Road. And like you see on that second page he gave you, that's my house, that's my driveway. And you can see there's no berm in front of my house. And like you said, they want to be good neighbors. That's all we asking, is to be good neighbors. Not that, hey, we're following all the requirements that we have to do, and so be it at that. So I'm just asking, first of all, I'd like to thank Terry for coming out to help us with our concerns, and he took a look at it, And we want to thank you and hope that you would take that in consideration tonight before you vote on this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on an agenda item this evening?
Ma'am?
Ma'am?
Was the previous discussion an agenda item?
Yes.
Hello, Bob. We do live as a residents from 1207 Cherry Hill Road, and my question would be, as we hear right now, the burns are not constructed. And also my question was, does the Northern Builders actually thinking of making a sidewalk for us, make it a little bit more, walkable area, I mean, the other builders or the buildings we have, they included sidewalk. I didn't see any sidewalk included on this proposal right now. Kids go to the school on the corner, would be nice. We could walk there a little bit, with the big trucks coming down the Cherry Hill Road. There is no real way we can walk, or, we have to take a car anywhere. We cannot just let the kids go anywhere at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to respond earlier to what Councilman Mudrid said, the residents that we are going to, that are going to be moving from Fairview can move anywhere. They're not going to be pushed toward an area that is just primarily minority. They could be your neighbor, Mr. Mudrid. I have Section 8 in my neighborhood, which is your district. And I would encourage them to look into your area. I'm going to take a busload of some individuals around our city to show them that there's West Side locations where they could live next to you, next to Councilman Quillman, to everyone. I have it in my neighborhood.
I already have it in my neighborhood.
They're not going to be limited. And let's make that clear. Also, one thing you have to remember is where Evergreen is located, or Riverwalk now, there's close to 500 units that the Housing Authority owns. And they're not going anywhere, Councilman Mudrid, or any of the other councilmen. They're staying there. And that's mixed housing. And that takes up almost half of the property over there. And they're not going anywhere, I can assure you that. But we're going to encourage residents with their Section 8 voucher to move anywhere they so desire. About 60% has indicated to me they're going to leave the city. But the 40%, they can move wherever they want, which means next to me, next to you, next to Councilman Turk, to anyone, any area they desire. And I'm going to be taking them, showing them locations, primarily on the west side. Also, in the future, when we build 60 new homes, which we're looking at, it could be in a subdivision on the west side of Joliet. We're not going to put it on the east side anymore. It's going to go on the west side somewhere, or a neighboring community, just so you're aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on an agenda item?
I'm Sandy Cialoni, 1217 Cherry Hill Road. I just had a question regarding the improvement to the road that Northern Builders is going to do. They're widening the road. It hasn't been indicated to us that it's going to be an improvement on our side of the street as well as the building side for the warehouses. Just curious about that. And we also were wondering if we could see a picture of what the completed warehouse is going to look like. We've never seen any kind of rendering of what we're going to be looking at, if that was possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, next is council committee reports, Economic Development Committee report.
The Economic Development Committee met here at City Hall on August 16th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. In attendance was Councilman Morris, Councilman Mudrin, and myself. We had 3 items. The first item was a property tax abatement request for Harbor Freight out in the Center Point area. In short, Harbor Freight will be, Steve, is that going to be the largest building of its type in the state, did we say?
Not in the state, certainly within Will County.
Okay, largest in Will County.
2.1 million square feet.
A 2.1 million square foot facility. Harbor Freight is a tool company, if you will. People that are involved, both hobbyists as well as professionals, have heard of Harbor Freight. So we looked over their proposal for the property tax abatement, and they will be getting the same property tax abatement that other builders or other developers get in the industrial area based on the CED formula. Then we're revisiting, we've got a new developer for what we lovingly call the right field building. That is the building with the statue sitting on the top in right field of the ballpark. And essentially it was just a review, very preliminary, so that we could give staff the authority to roll up the sleeves and negotiate with this individual further. And it sounds like he's preliminarily planning the same thing that the last person did who had problems with his financing ultimately, the last developer, which would be commercial on the first floor and then apartments above it. So we did give authority to staff to get into the negotiating with the new developer. And the final item we had was the Cadence Premier Building Permit Fee Adjustment. All that was there was an agreement based on a phase 1 and a phase 2, and that the way it was structured, they couldn't get they couldn't get the tax rebate on this second phase of it that they're doing now, or final phase, and that the agreement, and we had to codify it, was that they would get what is it, 10% discount. Cadence is now Cadence is the company that came in, and it's the first company that brought in a serious headquarters to us. So their headquarters is here. Everything Cadence is Joliet now. So for $200,000, they're getting $20,000 in waived fees, still paying the $180,000 on the rest of the fees, as well as bringing in all the jobs they brought in. So we certainly did recommend for approval. So items A and C, the first and third item I discussed, will be on the agenda tonight. And they both came with positive recommendations from all three members of the committee. And that is sum total of my report, unless Councilman Morris or Councilman Mudrum want to add something, or Steve Jones.
The only thing I wanted to add is, you all remember, Rocky had mentioned, he has the soccer the program, and one of the teams won the gold medal, I think he said. Won gold, they went out of state, and I just thought maybe, Mayor, it would be fitting to invite them to the council.
Sure, absolutely.
Some local youth that, I guess, one of the owners is the soccer pro or something. I thought, that was just...
You made me look good. Thank you for remembering. I did forget about that.
Pay attention in meetings.
Yes, you do. I see.
Next is the Finance Committee report.
Yes, Mayor. The Finance Committee met this evening, and the Finance Committee consists of myself, Councilman Turk, and Councilman Mudrum, yes. Councilman Turk actually had business to take care of at the office, so he did not make the meeting, so I kind of sat in as chairman. We had a number of reports, really no action items to take that took place. However, we did get the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or the CAFR, which Dave Meyer from Wilmer Rogers went through. One thing I would like to mention in the CAFR that he went through in the Finance Committee that he did not mention in his report, and it's some really good news. Our police and fire fund went up $51 million. It's a combination of increase in our investments and also the commitment that the city has made to making sure that our pensions are funded properly here at the city of Joliet. That's an increase of about 16%. So I thought that was some pretty good news. Also, in the statistical section, which is something good to note, is the tax rate for the last 4 years, or since 2014, has actually went down in the city of Joliet. So I think that's some good news as well, is that the council has really held, the council and the mayor has really held the line with respect to the city's tax rate, which benefits our residents. So that was it. It was a good meeting, and that concludes my report.
Thank you.
I show no other reports. Under consent agenda, approval of the minutes. It's recommended the minutes of the pre-council.
Public service?
Public service.
Oh, I apologize. I skipped. Trying to move the whole thing along. Sorry. Public Service Committee report.
Are you tired of me already?
Talk fast, Larry. Talk fast.
Sorry.
The Public Service Committee, contrary to what Krista would report, did meet this afternoon at 4 o'clock here at City Hall. In attendance was myself, and on the committee is myself, Councilman Dickinson, and Councilwoman Gavin. It was a very short meeting. That's probably why you forgot about it, Krista. Very short agenda. we had one contract that we awarded based on bidding, the sealed bidding process. Change orders and payments were routine. We did vet them and approved all of them or recommended all of them for approval. Will be on the agenda tonight. The only two things that I'll briefly mention is these are things that are done through policy. The sewer department has had, sewer water department has had a program that allows residents that have problems with clay pipe tile footing, correct, Allison, that needed to improve it, and they've expanded it for those people that if they have a sewer backup problem, it happens quite a bit, they can get up to $4,500 in grant money, matching grant money, to install, if they don't have one, an overhead sewer system within their house, an overhead sewer system with a sewer pump. But just wanted to mention that. Did I cover that well enough, Allison?
Yeah, we can provide more information on forms and letters to
Okay, thank you. And the other thing I was going to mention was that we are, the state of Illinois, the municipal, if you will, what we call municipal, what's that, municipal MUDC.
Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Which we adopted not as a council, as a city, many eons ago, which most cities follow, and the state is basically based on federal regulations in some regards too. And they've put out a directive letter saying not to put up warning signs such as deaf child or, child with autism. In their research and studies over the years, they've decided that it causes more problems. They listed several reasons why they don't want that being done anymore. One of them was, and myself and the council, the committee, as well as Jim Tristan agreed, was the false sense of security it provides to a family that might actually invite and increase the possibility of the special needs child being in harm's way. So since we do follow that code, we have to follow their directive as well too. But I wanted to say that because there might be some folks that have seen signs. We've got signs. Another thing they mentioned was we have signs in front of houses or in neighborhoods where the special needs individual may have moved out 15 years ago or, moved away and so forth. But that's not the main thing. But we really are concerned, and I do agree with the state from the data they provided, that we don't like that false sense of security that would encourage dangerous behavior, especially with a special needs child. And other than that, we got an update on the water survey that we're doing, a water loss survey. If you guys want, we had a good half-hour presentation. I can have Allison come up. No, I'm kidding. It was just an update. It should be finalized hopefully by end of the year, correct, Allison? It's on track. It's doing well. It has recouped over $1 million, in additional revenues. And that's just a tickler, a teaser. And by the end of the year, it should be finished. So expect to have that full report sometime in early 2019. And that is the sum total of our Public Service Committee meeting, unless anybody wants to add anything? No. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Now we'll move on to consent agenda. Sorry. Under consent agenda is approval of the minutes. It's recommended the minutes of the pre-council meeting held on August 6th and the minutes of the council meeting held on August 7th, 2018 stand approved as recorded. Council Memo 426-18 position vacancies. It's recommended the city manager be authorized to fill 1 GIS analyst position in Community Development Department and 2 parking facility servicemen, 2 positions in the parking division of Public Works Department. Council Memo 427-18 receipt of the 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. It's recommended this report be received and placed on file. Invoices paid report, it's recommended this report be received and placed on file. Council Memo 428-18, regular payroll for June 22nd, 2018 through July 5th, 2018, $3,893,622.99. And Council Memo 429-18, regular payroll for July 6th through July 19th, 2018, $3,434,423.46. It's recommended said regular payrolls be approved. Is there a motion to approve said consent agenda items?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
I will vote with the exception of invoices paid. I'll have to abstain.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under public hearings, Council Memo 431-18, amendment to an annexation agreement for CenterPoint Intermodal Center at Joliet Subdivision. It's recommended this item be tabled to the October 16, 2018 council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
In motion and seconded to table Council Memo 431-18 to the October 16, 2018 council meeting. Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Huggs.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 432-18 is an annexation of two parcels located at 799 South Briggs Street and the northeast corner of New Lenox Road and Oakview Avenue, classification to B3 zoning and approval of an annexation agreement and annexation of 1311 New Lenox Road, classification to R1 zoning and approval of an annexation agreement. Please let the record show the petitioners have withdrawn this request. Council Memo 433-18, ordinances and resolution pertaining to the northwest corner of Dollar Tree Lane and Route 53. This includes an ordinance approving a reclassification of 102 acres at the northwest corner of Dollar Tree Lane and Route 53 from B3 zoning to I1 zoning, a resolution approving an annexation agreement for the northwest corner of Dollar Tree Lane and Route 53, and an ordinance approving the annexation of northwest corner of Dollar Tree Lane and Route 53, and an ordinance approving the classification of the northwest corner of Dollar Tree Lane and Route 53 to I1 zoning. It's recommended that ordinances and resolution be adopted. This is a public hearing, so comments would be in order at this time.
Does anyone like to speak on this item?
Let the record show the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 433-18, which is ordinances and resolution pertaining to the northwest corner of Dollar Tree Lane and Route 53?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Hugg.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under ordinances, Council Memo 435-18. It's an ordinances approving the preliminary, final, and recording plats of Cherry Hill Business Park West Unit 5 subdivision. This includes an ordinance approving the preliminary plat of Cherry Hill Business Park West Unit 5 subdivision, an ordinance approving the final plat of Cherry Hill Business Park West Unit 5 subdivision Phase 1, and an ordinance approving the recording plat of Cherry Hill Business Park West Unit 5 subdivision Phase 1. It's recommended said ordinances be adopted.
I asked, Ms. Mayor, we table this until we can get more information on some of the concerns from the resident.
I'll second that.
Would you like to table it to the September 4th council meeting?
I believe we can get the information by then. I would hope.
I can't allow discussion after a motion to table. It's been made. Go ahead.
Been motion and seconded to table Council Memo 435-18, ordinances approving the preliminary, final, and recording plats of Cherry Hill Business Park West Unit 5 subdivision to the September 4th, 2018 council meeting. Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hugg.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 435-18 is tabled to the September 4th council meeting. Council Memo 436-18, an ordinance approving the vacation of 0.03 acre unused portion of an alley adjacent to 812 Plainfield Road. It's recommended this item be tabled to the September 4th council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion and seconded to table Council Memo 436-18 to the September 4th council meeting. Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hugg.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 437-18, ordinances approving the final and recording plats of Speedway Joliet Subdivision Unit 1. It's recommended said ordinances be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hugg.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 438-18, an ordinance declaring certain properties as public nuisances. Recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion seconded to approve. Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Kristen, did you want us to add the Public Service Committee meeting as a nuisance? Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under resolutions, Council Memo 439-18, a resolution authorizing execution of a supplemental agreement with the Union Pacific Railroad Company for the Laraway Road Sanitary Sewer Force Main Crossing. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 440-18 is a resolution approving a substantial amendment to the Community Development Block Grant Program Year 2017 Annual Action Plan to the 2015 through 2019 Consolidated Plan. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion seconded to approve. Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 441-18, resolution requesting authorization to enter into a regular 2018 Justice Assistance Grant intergovernmental agreement between the City of Joliet and Will County. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion seconded to approve. Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under award of contracts, Council Memo 442-18, award of contract for the 2018 hazardous tree removal and trim program, less than 20-inch diameter to D. Ryan Tree and Landscape Company in the amount of $36,500. It's recommended Council Memo 442-18 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion seconded to approve. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Motion carried. Amendments, change orders, and payments. Council Memo 444-18, approved payment in the amount of $41,144.45 to Construction by Camco Inc. for the emergency box culvert repairs, Highland Park Drive. Council Memo 445-18, approve amendment number 6 in the amount of $29,500 to the professional services agreement for the 2016 sanitary sewer investigations and rehabilitation program to RJN Group. Council Memo 446-18, approved change order number 6 in the amount of negative $4,760.05 for the 2017 sanitary sewer rehabilitation program to Institute Forum Technologies. Council Memo 447-18, approved payment for emergency repairs to influent pump station force main at the West Side Wastewater Treatment Plant in the amount of $47,009.36 to Speece Construction Inc. and $19,190 to LAI Limited. Council Memo 448-18, approved payment for emergency repairs to Well 20D in the amount of $95,063 to Great Lakes Water Resources Group. It's recommended Council Memos 444 through 448-18 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion seconded to approve. Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is the city manager's report.
Mayor and Council, I'd just like to recognize and to thank Jim Trisna, Public Works Director, and his staff, who worked with quite a few other individuals in order to put on, I thought, an excellent open house relating to the Hobart Road, Hollywood Avenue, and the new Des Plaines River Bridge. I was able to sit in on a couple of those meetings in preparation, and I think not only did CenterPoint, but the other players, IDOT and others, really went out of their way to really put on just an excellent opportunity for people to understand what is being proposed and hopefully will get underway with a groundbreaking sometime next spring. And I think, Jim, the final number was about 195 people who attended that. So, but again, our department, Public Works Department, worked very hard to put on that event. We appreciate all the elected officials who attended that. Tonight, we have an opportunity to recognize that our police chief, Brian Benton, who will be retiring, not right away, but the official date of retirement will be later on in November, and we'll be looking for an opportunity to more formally recognize his 28 years of service. But this is the last council meeting he'll actually be here because of other things he has planned between now and that end of November. So I just thought it'd be important to recognize him here tonight, and we'll look for another opportunity to have him back with his family for a more formal recognition and appreciation for his 20 years of service to the city of Joliet.
Yes.
So, and that's all I have to.
You're embarrassing me now, David, but thank you all very much.
We'll get him to give a speech here in the near future.
Next is new business, not for final action or recommendation.
Business.
Just one piece, Your Honor. If I can ask staff to follow up with me. The gas station at 1522 Clement, I saw some heavy equipment. I thought it was going to be up and ready to be repaired or reopened. But is there any way we can see if the owner called the fire marshal, the state fire marshal, for a permit? How does that work, Chief? What do we do? Is there any way we can find out if he's just pulling our leg, or
are you saying that there was a talk that they were going to be opening or rebuilding that station?
Yeah, they put heavy equipment there, like they were going to begin to do some work there, and I assumed that there was a permit for the gas station that had to be.
I have not seen anything from the office of the state fire marshal come through on a tank, but I'll contact them tomorrow and get in touch with you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. That's all I have.
Nothing.
Next is public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak tonight under public comments? Mayor and council can.
Just one thing, anybody hasn't been over to the Slammer Stadium, the pavilion in left field was completed last Friday by a combination of city staff underneath Mr. Trisna's, Mr. Mike Hewlett's direction, and it did a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to report on the biannual meeting of the Centerpoint Properties with the area residents. We met August 13th at the VFW on 53. Brian McKernan with Centerpoint. There's been many changes in the Union Pacific upper echelon, so they were unable to attend, but they're going to have another meeting with those later. Mayor, you came afterwards. They addressed many of the neighbors' concerns, and Mr. Trizza is working on a couple of families with the train noise with Union Pacific and getting some berms and things out there. And also, most of their questions were answered. They still have some issues, and I would hope that Centerpoint will be a good neighbor as always and help take care of those residents on Schweitzer when that those properties are annexed in. Otherwise, we'll have another meeting, and I'll let everybody know again when that is. And staff was there, Schwartz was there, and I'm trying to figure out who else. Looking at the attendance. Oh, Mr. Hansen was there also, and Rusty Thurston with Geotech for Centerpoint Properties was also there. It was a very good meeting, and all the concerns weren't addressed immediately, but we're working on them. So that's all I have.
Mike?
Nothing.
A couple things. Number one, on August 8th, the Chamber of Commerce hosted their annual New Teachers Breakfast, welcoming all new teachers into the Joliet School District. sponsored by College of St. Francis. Thank you, Chamber of St. Francis. Saturday, the Joliet, or Sunday, I'm sorry, Joliet Union Movement had their picnic. It's the 815 group, Amy Sanchez and Willie Irvin's?
Willie Irvin.
So thank you, I was out there at the picnic. Thank you, Joliet Union Movement. Saturday night, Terry Darcy hosted the Route 66 Classic at the track. As many of you probably heard, Will County got beat again, pretty handily. But we raised money for charity. So I was racing for Miracle League of Joliet, and I won my race, so they're going to get, I think, $2,000. Thank you, Terry Darcy, Scott Paddock, and all the folks out at Route 66. That was another great event. And then a couple good news events today. Number one, there was a ribbon cutting / boat launching at Ozinga. They are launching 2 new vessels from their Joliet plant. So if you haven't seen, it's something we don't talk about much, but the area to the south on the river has really grown and got congested with all the new development that's going on down there. Ozinga is part of that, obviously, and they're adding to it 2 new boats to help move what's happening at their Joliet plant. And then number 2, an exciting press conference at the Illinois Youth Center this morning. The Illinois Department of Corrections has announced that they are making a $130 million improvement to that facility. The new construction is going to take place over the next couple of years. With that, they're bringing 445 new jobs to what used to be the Illinois Youth Center. So again, when they closed, we lost a lot of jobs here in Joliet. And then a year ago, the state, the state announced they were reopening that. A number of jobs came back. But this is a huge commitment by the state to that facility in Joliet. We're glad to see the new construction and, of course, the new jobs coming to Joliet. That's all I have tonight.
I did receive a request for closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance pending or threatened litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
So moved.
Second. The motion is seconded to approve. Councilman Ledren?
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman?
Can I move the table then?
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug? Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Motion carried.
I knew that was.
Thank you.